Journalists in Mexico have been met with violence for quite some time now, but the situation is really escalating with several journalists who have been murdered in just 1 month. The latest is a journalist named Ms Maldonado who had communicated with the president of Mexico that she feared for her life. In fact, her warnings were met with added security that unfortunately didn't protect her from her murderers. Now, we don't know exactly who murdered her, but this is an ongoing issue within Mexico. Ms Maldonado was found fatally shot inside a car Sunday, according to a statement from the Baja California State Prosecutor's Office. Authorities received a 911 call around 7 p.m. and found Maldonado dead. Now, in 2019, Maldonado went to President López Obrador, and she attended his daily news conference and just tried to get him to understand how much she feared for her life. And that was after her car was sprayed with gunfire in April of 2021. Imagine just the absolute fear and the courage that journalists in Mexico really have in order to do their job, something that gets taken for granted, I think, in our situation. Now, after authorities did offer her municipal police protection and a panic button for emergencies, but clearly that didn't work. Now, the press organization Article 19 said via Twitter that Maldonado had covered corruption and politics in Tijuana and faced aggression previously because of her work. She was enrolled in the state's protection system for journalists who have been threatened, but the group did not detail the security measures. 2 other journalists were also recently murdered. Another Tijuana journalist, for instance, photographer Margarito Martinez, was gunned down outside his home on January 17th. He was well known for covering the crime scene in the violence-plagued city. He had received recent threats from a local organization and had requested protection for him. So Martinez's colleagues managed to get him a direct line to the National Guard, but that also didn't save him. And just to give you like a broader picture of the violence in Mexico, more than 95% of the murders and disappearances of journalists in Mexico never make it to trial, and even less to a sentence. So it's just an absolute devastating situation. I mean, imagine the courage you need to have to be willing to cover corruption stories, to be willing to cover crime, especially with cartel violence that's ongoing in the country.
Yeah, and it's bad enough, when it's somewhat hypothetical, when you're working in that area year after year, and you know that this is one of the countries where journalists are most likely to be the targets of violence. To continue then is difficult to imagine, but then after you have personally narrowly escaped death, as in the first case, and it's like the through line to multiple examples that I've seen is that they have had periodic incidents, and the thing is, I have no doubt that not enough protection was given to them, but at the same time, I don't know what level of protection you would need to never be vulnerable. As a photographer, how do you do your job and never open yourself up to violence like that? Or as a reporter, like you can and should get a lot of protection, but even if they were taking it seriously, and I think that that's one of the issues, is that in many of these cases, the journalists and the organizations representing them don't have any faith that the authorities are actually taking it seriously. I don't know what can actually be done. But that number that you read at the end is honestly the scariest part, because in response to this, and in response to some of the earlier killings that happened just so far this year, AMLO and like the governors and stuff like that will say, we're gonna solve this by tracking down these killers and stopping more violence against journalists. Okay, sure. I hope, that would be great. There's not a lot of reason to believe that.
Well, let me also just make a quick correction, because I want to make sure you guys get the timeline correct, and I didn't get it correct. So I mentioned that Maldonado had asked for protection from the president. That was in 2019, and her car was sprayed with bullets in April of 2021. So after she had asked for the protection, she did get some protection. Her vehicle though was sprayed with bullets, and by the way, she got the protection after her vehicle was sprayed with bullets. So she had to be a victim of that kind of violence to kind of prove and show that her life really was in danger. And the only other thing that I want to say in regard to what these journalists are facing in Mexico is think about the United States and its role in increasing violence in places like Mexico, right? We've emboldened cartels with our drug war. Weapons are smuggled from the United States to Mexico and to other Latin American countries. And so we don't want to do anything to tighten up our gun laws. We don't want to do anything to close, gun show loopholes and all of that. Super easy to purchase guns here in the United States, take them across the border. And those are the very weapons that are used against innocent people and journalists in Mexico. And then you think about the way Americans perceive these individuals as they're seeking asylum at our border. They're dangerous, they're criminals, reject them. Biden and his Justice Department, as we speak, is fighting aggressively to maintain a ban on asylum seekers coming into the country during the pandemic. That's a Trump era, insanely cruel policy. Why is Biden fighting, literally fighting to maintain it? He's so different from Trump, everyone.
It fits in with his ideology and generally the Democratic establishment's approach to immigration going back 30 years, which is not fundamentally that dissimilar.
Exactly.
In a lot of ways, yeah.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.